Assalamu alaikum. Well, I'm going to talk about the notion of truth in documentary film and television. And let me introduce myself. I've just realized today that I've been doing a lot of online videos, and I've never introduced myself with this presumption that people who are watching these videos maybe take a little look at my profile, which introduces me. Well, my name is Zafar, and I have a PhD in film studies from University of Glasgow. And my focus in my PhD was documentary film and how it talks about history and how it talks about our social realities. And I've been teaching documentary for about 15 years in different universities. Even before I did my PhD, I had an MPhil from University of Glasgow, in which I had a course in documentary film and television. Now, when I did this post on Facebook with this title, the truth in documentary film and television, I realized that it might not be very clear to the general audience why we call it documentary film and television, because these are two different areas. And of course, they converge and they are overlapping in many ways, but documentary film, because it was originally, documentaries were initially made on film, the celluloid film, and they were released in cinema. So, but later, after the inception of television and the proliferation of television in the 1950s, we had a different way of doing documentaries, and as the technology developed, as things improved, then the way documentary was conceived, the way it was understood, the way it was theorized, everything changed. And with portable cameras and easy equipment, and which has continued to happen even till our own times, when we have these mobile cameras, and everybody has a camera now, and everybody can shoot and post, and there are ways of easy dissemination of that content. And of course, this Facebook Live is one of them, which means that we have a huge amount of documentary content, or reality content, as we like to say. So whereas this distinction, where can this distinction be drawn between documentary film and documentary television, or maybe it is more apt to say documentary screens as we experience it today, how it presents the reality. I mean, let's put this reality in the inverted commas here, how that reality is presented, how that reality is perceived by the audience, and how that reality content is consumed. And I thought really it's important to talk about it because of two reasons primarily. Because one was that we have a huge amount of this reality footage floating around us, and with this assertion and claim that what it is showing to us is reality, it is unadulterated kind of depiction of the world around us. The second reason was I gave a question to my students during this final exam, which we conducted 2 weeks ago. And to the students, I was teaching this documentary course, and the question was this pertain to this question, to this relationship between docudrama and melodrama. And I have my own original work in the thesis which I produced for my PhD, uh, focusing on this relationship between docudrama and melodrama. And the question I gave to my students was based on the reading of this docudrama produced by Paul Greengrass, Bloody Sunday, which was produced in 2002 in Britain. And the documentary talks about it actually depicts the events of the British Army using high-handed tactics with the protesters in the Northern Ireland. And as a result, several people had died. And this documentary particularly is a total reenactment. It is dramatized, it uses professional actors, and it engages the audience emotionally. And so what kind of truth is revealed through this kind of depiction of reality when it is reenacted? So that's the idea, and I want to keep this talk very, very short. And I want to leave you with some questions which maybe you would like to ponder over the time, whatever is available to you. So the location of truth in documentary and what kind of truth can be depicted is traditionally claimed, which the documentarists make this claim that they are depicting a truthful account of the world, which they are recording and observing and showing it to their audience. But we have some, there are some settled matters which in academic writing we call essentialism. We avoid using those ideas in our academic talk. Things which have been settled, which means that things that are essentially there, and we do not really entertain them in our questions and so forth. In our answers. Starting with the notion of, is objectivity possible? No. This is a settled matter. And of course there have been debates about it, whether a documentary film can present an objective view of the world, which means that the filmmaker remains impartial with the process of depicting reality and depicting the world which he is showing to us. So that objectivity is not possible. And this philosophical notion about the relativity of truth, that truth is a relative thing. Yes, it is a relative thing. There is nothing more to discuss in this, and this debate is settled. And we don't really further bring it up in our classroom discussions or even in our academic discussions. So what kind of truth? So this type of truth is the real issue here, and we can divide truth and emotional truth. There is a political truth, and there is a social truth, or a personal truth. So what are these types of truths, and which filmmakers choose to portray, depict, or convey in their documentaries? And this particular question, which I wanted my students to answer in relation to this connection between docudrama and melodrama, that pertains to this notion of emotional and political truth, and what kind of so these truths are constructed truths. And so what we should be focusing on while dealing with these questions is the process in which or through which these truths are constructed, and how those persuasive techniques are incorporated in filmmaking, which convey these truths to the audience. And emotional truths are dangerous truths because they involve the audience emotionally, and this emotional engagement of the audience or the audiences blurs their their vision of looking at the thing objectively, because once your emotions are involved in anything, your objectivity and impartiality is inadvertently blunted, and it deprives you from developing an independent assessment or view of the reality which you are showing. So this is a very dangerous thing to do, and that is where exactly melodrama comes into play in documentary. Melodrama, now melodrama is an element in storytelling or in filmmaking, which engages the audience emotionally, and there have been allegations against the use of melodrama or melodramatic content itself, that it promotes sensationalism, and that sensationalism is cheap. So, but the advocates of melodrama, they say that that melodrama has a higher objectives. It attempts to bring an order of justice in society, because in melodramatic structure we have a villain and we have a protagonist who stands for the rights of the people, and he defeats the villain within that story, and even if that defeat is not as visible as we have in Bloody Sunday, at least the villain is shown in the negative light, and the protagonist is glorified, which means clearly that you are engaging your audience emotionally, and you are promoting or advocating one particular side and demonizing the other side, and which in other words means you are taking sides, which slaughters, kills, or undermines, using softer words, it undermines the impartiality of the filmmakers. So any content which you are watching, having this claim that it is depicting reality or showing or bringing the truth out to you, you have to be really careful, and you have to be watchful of this fact that it has this melodramatic content which engages you emotionally, and hence your impartial or objective view is undermined through that process. So that is what happens to truth in documentary when it is placed within an argument. So placing a piece of reality or piece of social reality or piece of history within a narrative structure becomes then that particular piece of reality which actually happened, maybe the reality footage or home footage or the CC camera footage, whatever type of reality footage is used, when it is placed within a narrative structure, it becomes part of an argument, and that argument is definitely a partial view, presents a partial view of what you are watching, and I will leave you with this question. I just wanted to introduce this idea in this short talk about what happens to truth in documentary, or if you like to say, in not only documentary film or TV, but in all documentary screens in which we are encountering on a daily basis, and in an abundance of amount, whatever is available on the social media, or which we consume all the time. Thank you.